Roundtable Decision. I'm your host, Wyatt Briganoff, and for today's video, I'm going to talk about something that's been an idea I've had for a while, and recently I asked on Twitter, and Jake from Sweden Scoop commented on something that was very similar to a topic I had before at one point. So I decided I was going to go ahead and go with the topic, and to kind of talk about what Jake from Sweden Scoop also mentioned on this question, and that is essentially, do you think that liberal echo chamber type of college environments, because in general there are more liberal professors than conservative professors in college, and college in general has tended to gone more of a liberal direction as a whole. So do I think that those are going to be lessened or go away due to the fact that they're all having to move online, and more people may be considering going the online route as education kind of becomes more technically available? Even in high school, they're getting laptops and things now compared to what they were a couple years ago within technology in education. So through the technology needs or through students wanting to work from, or in this case, take college from home, do I think that those echo chambers can necessarily go away? And I think a good place to start is where college has been in liberal universities or in liberal colleges. As we get through a few statistics, you can kind of see why a lot of conservative type of media has been somewhat afraid of what has happened in the past and what is happening now. According to an article published in the Econ Journal Watch, it said that out of 7,243 professors, the Democrats were 3,623 to the 314 counterpart conservative professors. That made it a odds of 11.5 to 1. So, in other words, with the ratio, you would have 11.5 liberal professors compared to the one Republican or conservative type of professor on a campus. So, out of your, let's just say, 13 science biology courses you can take, the chances of you having a conservative professor is only one out of those 13 classes. And obviously that's a little different than the statistic given there, but you can kind of get the point, and you can get why a lot of conservative type of media has said that these echo chambers are bad for the learning environment. And I'll continue. And they also quoted which type of classes yield more results as far as the ratio. So in other words, if you take an economic class, what would your ratio might be compared to if you were to take a biology or science type of course? So for the economics class, it was a 4.5 to every conservative, which was the most friendly ratio from the journal and statistics that they found. Also, if you were to consider the least friendly, was 33.5 to 1 odds, and that was of government class. And all of these articles are linked to my description if you want to read them for yourself. But 39% of colleges have 0 Republican professors on their campus. And so, again, college I don't think is supposed to be political, but a lot of teachers end up making it political, or they end up bringing their own scenarios or their own life circumstances into the environment, and their own life examples and circumstances tend to be political, especially on election years like we are in now. And this can be seen in a later article I'm going to talk about, what kind of breaks down these percentages a little bit more. And that was on onenewsnow.com. And this could also be seen in a very viral video that got released a couple months, maybe even a year ago at this point, of a student who filmed this professor who went on a rant against Trump underneath the desk and later got expelled by the school. And this was a whole big major story that I remember Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Matt Christensen, all these type of conservative type of networks, all these type of political commentators on YouTube talked about over and over and over. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you here, and you can kind of see the danger of these echo chambers and liberal environments that colleges have been created for.
Our nation is divided. We have been assaulted. It's an act of terrorism. One of the most frightening things for me and most people in my life is that the people committing the assault are among us.
That's Orange Coast College professor Olga Perez Stable-Cox.
As you can see in that real short video clip that you might remember when it first became viral, the college professor was clearly talking about Trump and almost saying very negative things against Trump and things the conservative student on campus thought were very wrong and encouraged bad stances and bad political impact or agendas to happen within his college, and he was not a fan. And he ended up getting in trouble for it, but because of the news and the attention that got brought from it, he ended up okay in the situation as a whole. But it is not always the case, and I believe this is highly because of the echo chamber, as I mentioned before, that gets created through these liberal ideologies. And I want to make this statement very clear before I continue on. Not all liberal stances or all liberal colleges or professors are totally against conservatives or against conservative type of agendas. A liberal stance in general isn't something I'm necessarily not a fan of. Not a fan of. Because liberals aren't, the classic liberal definition of the word is not as crazy as we think of it today. Many times when we think of liberals, we think of the super progressive type of agenda that Bernie Sanders and free college and all other things like that is what a liberal stands for. But if you take the very bare definitions of what a liberal is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But now that I've got that out the way, we can talk about some of these liberal ideologies that these on-campus colleges are creating. Abortion, where they say that a woman has a right to choose and that a fetus is not human and therefore you can do whatever you want to it, so to speak. Then you also have affirmative action, where a lot of liberals think that the government in the past has done wrong against minorities, and therefore the government should make extra effort in making these minorities feel better in the America we live in today. Then you also have the death penalty, where they believe it should be absolutely abolished, but at the same time they believe that assisted suicide in general should be allowed. Economy. Governments must regulate the economy for it to be the best economy available. So in other words, a liberal tends to think that the more the government gets involved, the better it is. And again, I am not talking about the big L libertarianism that a lot of people might think when they hear the word liberal. Liberal and libertarianism as a party are different. A libertarian is somebody who believes that the smaller the government is, the better. That's not what I'm talking about here. The definition I'm bringing of liberal now is a separate ideology, and then a little bit next to it is the democratic ideology that liberals tend to share mostly, and then you have on the far end the progressive ideology that a lot of people tend to think of liberals as being. Again, I'm not talking about the big L libertarianism here. Energy, where they believe other sources of energy need to be allowed and that we need to get away from oil. Then you have pro-global warming, where they believe that we have done through carbon emissions everything wrong to the planet possible, and this needs to get improved on and needs to happen immediately. Not the super progressive agenda of the Green New Deal with AOC. But I'm talking about more a very general sense of liberal. And again, before I talk about a little bit more, a lot of college professors and the professors become viral, like that teacher in the short video clip I played. And in my next example, you see are taking this way much to the extreme and almost the progressive angle side of things. But if you take the very general sense of the word liberal, that's not necessarily the case. And you have many more besides global warming and other things. You can go on and on. You can go on to immigration, where they believe open borders and other things around there. But we all know the effectiveness of these liberal ideologies on college students, because in general, college students come in as a gray slate. A lot of people my age and a lot of people younger or older than me aren't necessarily following politics or find politics that interesting or that fun, and they tend to think of professors as being higher up than them and higher educated, which they are. So they look up to them as figures to listen to, and these figures have a very big advantage of being able to tell the students what they should be able to think and when they should be able to think it. And this creates a very, very complex issue. And the video clip I'm going to play now is not in a college situation, but in a 7th grade classroom, but it still kind of shows how teachers are feeling like they can get away with their political agendas more and more.
The mother of a 7th grader is outraged after she says her daughter got a classroom assignment she says exposes how the school favors the left. Here's part of what that assignment said. Kevin is an optimist, a liberal, and believes government can help people help themselves, while Amos is pessimistic, a conservative, and believes government support makes people lazy. The concerned parent, her name is Sally Phillips, and she joins us now with more.
Later in that same video clip, you had the mom later talk about how it made her daughter feel and how they felt as parents, and how the assignment was very clearly a political type of assignment compared to what they believe school should be. And the school later released a statement to Fox News in that clip about how that wasn't in their curriculum and that the teacher had no right to play it, and that the mom had later had a meeting with the professor and the teacher of that particular class. But those are the type of examples you can see, and I'll have that video also linked in my description if you want to watch it in full. But these are the type of environments that colleges are making in liberal echo chambers, that the word I keep using, get created, because these echo chambers that are making professors feel like they have the ability to use this as an example. Although that wasn't in college and in 7th grade, I think it proves my example even more, as teachers in general are feeling like they're able to do it at a younger and younger grade level age compared to the college age, where people are adults and can make their own decisions. In a 2004 study, it found that 48% of students thought that their class was one-sided in one political direction or the other. And I think we kind of know what political direction that was. Later in that same study, they found that 46% of professors used the class to present their political viewpoints or their personal viewpoints. 68% made negative comments against Bush, and this was during the political campaign of Bush against Senator Kerry, who only had 17% of negative comments against him. So you can clearly see a political direction within personal viewpoints and within political direction even from then. And then 42% claimed that the readings that they read through textbooks or through other readings professors made them read from websites or other words were one-sided in their viewpoint. 47% thought there was negative comments against conservatives, while only 15% for liberals. 49% mentioned politics in class even when they didn't need to. And that is a statistic I really thought was interesting. This was in 2004. And I do think that these statistics can go up from now on, because this was over many colleges in the study, and I'll have the study in the description below if you want to read it in full as well. But this was over more than just a couple different colleges. They took a lot of colleges into perspective within this study, and they found that 49% of students thought that their classes and their information that they were learning was not only one-sided, but they didn't even need to be talked about. And professors, I think, are feeling more and more confident to be able to share their personal viewpoints that most often align with liberal viewpoints. And again, the country does have the First Amendment with the freedom of speech, and I highly encourage people to use their First Amendment rights. I'm very much a fan of that, as you can see in many of my other videos that I have made and my personal stance as well. And professors do have a right to share those thoughts, but they shouldn't necessarily feel obligated to share those thoughts as well. I think it's dangerous to share political thoughts in a class on a topic that's not even relative to what you are actually talking about. And I particularly had a textbook in government class where they had a picture of Trump, and it was a fake picture where during Hurricane Harvey here in Houston, they had a rescuer in their boat, and their safety boat, reach out their hand to pick up someone from the water, and someone photoshopped Trump doing that. So a person who didn't have very much political news or political mindset would look at that picture and think that Trump was actually there, when in reality he wasn't. And the textbook went to mention that these type of scenarios are dangerous to people who don't follow the news and don't necessarily watch it. But that's also kind of dangerous in a lot of other perspectives. The textbook could have used a lot of other examples, and I think the textbook was trying to make it seem more newer and more hip and up to date with using Trump as an example. Trump is a very divisive figure within politics, so I don't know if they were necessarily doing that for fairness' sake or for other reasons. But this brings me to kind of the final point of the video, and one I kind of wanted to brainstorm along with you with. Now that college has moved on to online, do I think that these echo chambers will continue relative to what is happening? I think that the 49% number is something to watch out for, because if professors are feeling like they're able to share their agendas even when it's not necessarily relative to their class or to their information that they're sharing, I don't necessarily think that that's going to change. I also think that a lot of college professors are set with their minds down in sharing information. I think some professors have it to where they want to share their information to teach their students the right way, and they're making it a goal to do so. But I also think that the majority of college professors are liberal and have the liberal viewpoint and stance. Whatever way and why that is kind of unknown at this point, but I think a lot of them have their own personal viewpoints, and just because they're human, they end up sharing these personal viewpoints, and they don't necessarily mean to. I do think that that's probably the majority of college campuses, but it is somewhat dangerous to think that there are so many of just one perspective, and you had, again, the number of 39% of college campuses having 0 Republican professors. That is a scary number. Even if politics are supposed to be out of the classroom, they're going to find their way in just because we are human, especially on an election year like this year. But then again, online college is also a lot harder to do so, and I take the example of a few of my friends and myself who are in online college now due to all this COVID-19. A lot of professors are struggling to figure out exactly what they're going to do with it, because yes, there's more technology and more availability to do so. It's also a lot harder to have this technology and use it within their classrooms. One college professor I have is very handy and is making live webinars that I've been viewing for psychology and other classes. But I also have a lot of other professors, like my math professor had a YouTube channel and uploaded all of her stuff to YouTube, and basically isn't going to do anything until it's due because she already has everything there. So she was super prepared and way ahead of most of other college professors. But then I have my government professor, what seems to be the first time having to use online the program, and D2L, which is the program we use, is a little bit complex. And not everybody has access to computers and to internet and all these other things. So online college, making people do it is rather harsh. But I also think that it's a lot harder to kind of share political viewpoints through online. I think the power of public speaking, and the professor was really good at public speaking, is able to captivate a live audience and get them to believe what they want, especially if the person who is listening isn't necessarily someone that's up to date with information. But at the same time, I think that can be done online, because you can see several famous YouTubers that have become famous through online media, such as Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Matt Christensen, and many others. And there are many other YouTubers I didn't name that are on that list and that I watch. And even YouTubers that are not politically related would still have content what is fun. But I do think that in a large part, Steven Crowder and mainly Ben Shapiro back a couple years ago really exposed the echo chamber and liberal colleges on campus site. But I think that the fact that online media is a lot harder and not a lot of people are able to even access it at this point, even though I think at one point it will be, I don't necessarily think that it will be as easy for colleges and liberal professors to be able to really influence their viewers or their students through the online medium as of yet. Unless if they really wanted to do that through webinars like my one professor, even though he's not very political, thank goodness, or through YouTube medium like my math professor, but obviously that's math. Nothing gets talked about there. But then again, I do think that there will be the percentage of professors that are going to do it regardless, because it is their mission, as I've kind of already stated. And that would probably be through webinars or maybe even through text and readings that you're having to read. I take that example of my government professor, who most of the readings were about agendas that had multiple perspectives because it's government and we're talking like gun rights and other things. But the articles she made me read or made the class read were very much against the NRA and other means like that. So through cherry picking the articles, you can make the viewpoint and perspective your way and your side. And I think that that is a dangerous thought and a dangerous thing that I think can still happen through online. But I do think it's going to be a lot harder. And I think that more college students and people who are maybe a little bit younger than me are going to want to go more of a online college route than before. See you in my next video.